Joining us right now on the phone is the man who exposed the Bigfoot hoax, Steve Kulls, private investigator and executive director of Squatchdetective.com.
The numbers of sightings, even if you take 99% of them and put them in the trash can, you turn around, you still have that 1% that can't be explained. Well, we need to explain it.
And then this thing walks across the road, makes a turn towards us. All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
The whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us.
I still see that damn thing to this day. It wasn't 20 feet from me.
You could see it standing from the moonlight in the tree line.
I was just scanning right to left, and it reminded me of like a gorilla.
Get somebody out here. Son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, January 29th, 2023. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. Hello, Chris. How you doing down there?
Steve, doing good, bud. Hope you're doing okay.
I am doing wonderful. And hello to our guest for tonight, Mr. David Wilbanks. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, it's going to be a fun night. So, Chris, how you been, brother?
Man, I'll tell you, I have really been enjoying this nice weather. We've had a really early spring, and I know it's January, but I've been enjoying some spring-like weather the last few days, and I got outside a little bit. That's kind of odd for me, but I got outside and enjoy the nice temperatures. Man, I hope it's doing warming up in New York too. Are you guys getting any of this warm weather, or still?
We have. It's been in the 40s the last couple of days, very low 40s. Right now, it's a nice 38 degrees. It's still above freezing, so it's not down in the teens. And this is usually our typical late January weather anyway. So.
Yeah.
I'm just happy we got maybe 5 or 6 more weeks till the winter is over with.
Yeah.
And then, we may deal with some weather, but the extreme cold, which is really the thing I hate the most, is the extreme cold. It's like,
pulling for spring. Want an early spring, but that's okay. If it warms up by March, I'm good. No problem.
Yeah. Amen to that. So let's do our roll call for tonight. We got an exciting show. Got some good announcements going on too, as well, for what's coming up on the channel this week, what's going on another channel, and our guest for next week. So, our guest for the next 2 shows, actually. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Here we go. So in the chat tonight, first in tonight, turn the light on for everybody. Aaron, Chris. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Chris.
B. Lynn in the house. Mark's in the house. The tall ones, Brent. Man, Brent is beating the bad guys up lately. Wow. The No Such Thing podcast. Hello, welcome. Jay Fritz, our good friend Jay Fritz.
Hi, Jay.
Let's see who else. Eyes in the Woods in the house. Into the Night, Bigfoot and Paranormal Talk Radio.
Welcome.
Oh, you must know that person, Dave. Well, welcome to the show.
Talking about Joe, Western New York Bigfoot there.
Joe. Joe's in there. Thank you, Joe. We'll get to your comment in a minute, Mr. Low Rider, Grasshopper, Angel Nolan, Joe Dryden, High Five Chaser, Little Kilroy was here. Uncle Bones in the house. Arthur Watch. Stephen Barcelo. Hello. Welcome from the Crypto and yeah, I can't even talk tonight. Raptor Crazy. Joe. Joe, who's very lippy tonight. Who's this Dave? The guy knows everything. DM Zabo in the house. John Ayers in the house. Jen, welcome.
John, Jen.
Who else? Getting there. I think
Grasshopper,
that's
yeah.
it. And then, of course, Joe with his comment. Good to see you, Dave. The other two, not so much.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate you.
It makes me sad. Anyway, well,
I think that's kind of a sideways compliment, you know.
It is. But anyway, so first announcement is within the next day or two, we'll be cutting the Trail Cam series number 2. And man, there's some really great captures on that trail camera.
Oh, yeah.
And surprising, I wasn't really expecting much because one of the cameras right now, I've already got my 100 picture submissions for the month. It's still got a few more days before the next one. And the other one we had wasn't working for a few days because it wasn't reading the card. I had to reinsert the card. And I didn't think we were going to get anything, but wow.
I'm not going to give anything away, but I've already seen them. And one of those, you could have knocked me over with a feather.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and I didn't show you all. There's another series of pictures there too. That was like, wow, that was pretty impressive. Plus, our regular cast of characters that we've had, some even better shots of them. Except now they're in video. We've switched the cameras now to video mode because now we're testing the video mode.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I'm very pleased with the amount of videos on them, and they don't take up much space, and the sound is good. So you'll see that all this week. What else? What else do we have for now?
Well, do those work on a cellular signal, or do you have to have a Wi-Fi available?
They are on a cellular signal. So, the reason why I picked the Spy Point brand is the Spy Point brand is the only one that offers a free plan. They give you 100 free pictures a month, or 5 HD videos. So now what I'll do is I will get a screen cap of what's going on the videos, and then it'll ask me if I want to upload the video to my phone.
Theoretically, a man could place one of those any place that has a cell signal, and you could like watch it from your house or download the video from your house rather than having to trek out in the woods and get the little
Well, yeah. Well, you know, it saves everything to the card. When you get the pictures, you get a standard definition picture, but you can only get the HD pictures off the card. But the beautiful thing is now I know what's on that card for the most part. Yeah. And like I say, with the video one being out of plan, I didn't know what was on there. And with the other one being out for 3 days, I didn't expect much. And then once I got it fixed, nothing was going on for a few days. And I figured, there's not going to be much on there. I'm going to clear them out. Redo the batteries were getting down to the teen percentage. So I said, let me switch out the batteries. And, I put the cards in the computer and went, oh my God, what do we got? And I was sitting here with my wife and we were just going through each one, and I was doing it purposely. I'll go through this one. Okay. What's that one. And then we came across the ones I was telling you about in our jaws. So it's really, really, really cool. And I see Joe said he's going to decide to start collaborating with Professor McGillicuddy. McGillicuddy's taken off. And see McGillicuddy's science. And speaking of which, Professor McGillicuddy now has his own channel. We've kicked him out of this studio. We were tired of him breaking things. We were tired of having to put newspapers down every time he had to come over and do a show. So take a look. This is his channel and his, you let me know. Here we go.
We've been looking at this area, and it's got all these X's and bendy trees.
Who filmed this thing?
Flying around Well, I got thinking about this, and I thought, And now we're waiting, and look, there's the Sasquatch, and he's going into his nest. I'm gonna go to the ultimate source that everything anywhere goes to. It's gotta be flat. It's gotta be flat. Oh.
And there you have it. Breaking things everywhere he goes.
Well, he's moving on up. He's got his own channel now, so that's good.
Yeah, it's good to get him out of the house. Out of the house. I don't know if anybody caught the Facebook post. He was at my birthday party the other night, and he had a little incident. And there, Joe, that's the man. Anyway, but for those who don't know, we do now have a Squatch-D TV swag store, which you can also get some Squatch Detective merchandise too. So if you go to the home page of the channel, there is a store tab now, and any one of these links will bring you right to the store. We've kept our profit margins really, really small, so everybody could get something affordable, and it's a good way to support the channel and help out. We get a few bucks for it, and you get a neat, nifty shirt or a nifty hat. And we even have the Bigfoot Laughs Track shirt there too. So
I may be able to finally get me a new shirt.
That's right. And everybody keeps asking me about camo caps and stuff like that. Well, we got a camo cap out there. So there you go, folks. Yep. So next week we're going to have on Bruce Hallenbach, author of The Kinderhook Creature, and a great book. And who else do we have going on? It's the 12th will be the Super Bowl, so we won't have a show on the Super Bowl Sunday because I like my chicken wings and the one game a year I really watch. And the week after, we'll have on Jay Bachochin and Manny back as we're doing an evidence follow-up. So we'll be saying, what did they really see? What did they really film? What else did they find? And that's going to be really a cool show. So there we go. Anything else you can think of, Chris, before we kick off? Maybe if you folks out there want to do us a solid and smash that like button while you're here and while we're thinking about it. And then now we'll
subscribe if you're not already, because that really helps.
Sure does. But here we are. And Dave, we'll get right to Dave. Dave, how are you?
Good.
And we haven't seen you since.
Anyway.
we haven't seen you, and actually, it was kind of funny because you had made mention of being on this show when we had the whole Allen incident. He was the guy claiming to have been hired to remove troublesome Sasquatch, nuisance Sasquatch off a property. That actually wasn't the show. That was actually Joe's show. Not thinking.
Oh, was it? Was it on Joe's show?
That was on Joe's show. So,
the first one, the only reason I popped in is because he's saying he was doing that down here in my part of the country. And I'm like, no, that's not it.
So let's get into this. Dave, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background professionally and how long you've been at this and all that fun stuff. What got you into it? You know what to do.
Well, as far as how I got into it, I've been interested in it all my life. But long story short, my mother worked for a veterinarian back in the late 60s named Dr. Lewis Stiles, and he was not a believer in Bigfoot, but he is what I would call a hopeful skeptic that approached everything from a scientific, show me the evidence kind of way. And in about 1965 or so, 66, I guess, he had, I don't know how he's gone now, but he had contacted Roger Patterson. He had got wind of him going on these expeditions looking for Bigfoot, and he wanted to go with him, and his deal, he said, well, I'm a veteran and you ride horses. If you had trouble with any horses, I could be there to help. That never happened as far as him getting to go, but he had purchased, or Roger had given him, or whatever, that book that he wrote, Do Abominable Snowmen in America Really Exist? And of course, I'm a little kid. By this time, we're talking 1973. We'd be over at his house. I knew right where that book was, and I was just enthralled by it. And then I've just been hooked on that subject ever since, just kind of what I tell people, they say, why Bigfoot? I said, I love the outdoors. I love a good mystery, and what neater mystery about the outdoors is there than Sasquatch, Yep. And then, grew up, and back about the mid 90s to late 90s, I started really more officially looking into this. And of course, the internet was new. I started a website late 90s called southernbigfoot.com, and people would send me their sightings. And if it was close to me, I would go, check them out, and such as that. So, and then of course, you was talking about Bigfootville. In 2001, I helped the Travel Channel on a documentary about Bigfoot in Oklahoma, which it aired first in 2003. And I don't know, it's a interesting subject to me, and I've been looking into it ever since.
Now, professionally, you were in law enforcement for a while as well.
Well, okay. Here's the deal. Professionally, I own a music store, and I have for the past 30 years. But in the small town that I have my music store in, I also worked as a reserve police officer for the city for 13 years. And, what did I get out of that? I mean, you really learn to deal with people, interact with people. When you're out like that, you get a good idea of when people's feeling you love it, and such as that. So what I learned from that was just a lot of how to interact with people and such as that. I heck of an interview,
and get a good read off them too. So that's
right.
So yeah, because when you interact with people, you see when get to know when they're not, it's kind of blowing smoke.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into Bigfootville. Tell us, for those who haven't seen Bigfootville, it is a great documentary. Obviously now it's 20 years old, but I still love popping in and watching it every once in a while. I have a digital version too.
I'm sure I'm being biased here. But one thing Bigfootville, I think, has different from a lot of what it passes for that today is it was an actual documentary, where a lot of the stuff now is, without naming any of it, is really poor reality TV stuff.
I always cut the line that if it's a TV series such as like a Finding Bigfoot or a Expedition Bigfoot or Mountain Monsters or whatever, that's a TV series. It's a way different animal than, say, a Monster Quest or a
right. Yeah, the Monster Quest is a totally different thing. Those are documentary. But I mean, yeah, you can't have a weekly, and this is just me, my opinion, but a weekly series where you go out looking for Bigfoot. You find evidence every time you go out. That just doesn't happen. As anyone that looks into this honestly knows, there's a lot, and I've gotten into lately even putting video up of me just camping. Because majority of the time that's exactly what it is. It's just a fun camp trip, And then there's the occasion where you go out where there is interesting things that happen when you're out in the woods. You know.
Yeah. Don't I know it? We did a podcast September of 2021, and we had a unsolicited tree knock, and we had a rock thrown at us right while we were broadcasting. So that was way cool. And whether or not it was Bigfoot, I don't know, but it came off in a rather recent Bigfoot sighting. So it was kind of a unique experience. And But does that ever happen? Yeah, not at all. We returned a couple of weeks later and nothing happened. So
yeah,
the most recent video things that I did, of course, the one that I recently posted is leftover footage from September of a trip to the Ouachita Mountains. But I don't know, are y'all familiar with the YouTube channel Will Star Mysteries?
A little bit. Yep. A little bit.
Okay. Well, anyway, Will, he and I'd kind of got acquainted, and he's been after me to come down and me take him up into the mountains where I go. He's up in Ohio, and he came down in October, and we had some stuff happening around our camp, like quite a bit. A really loud vocalization right behind us, like, just right in. Of course, we had no campfire. There was a burn ban, but it was a moonlit night. It was very bright. But later that evening, I have one of these, and it was just one of these cheap night vision cameras from Amazon, but something did toss a rock down into our camp, and I did catch the sound of that rock hitting and bouncing, and it's on there. And I know, anybody else watching that don't know me or whatever, they say, well, that could have been, fabricated or whatever. Sure, you say that, but it's for me. And I know, and Will was too. You could hear his voice. I instinctively, it's part two of it. I said, did you do that? No, bruh, I'm right here. And I look at him, and he's holding a parabolic microphone in one hand and his cell phone in the other. And he's kind of freaked out. And I'm giddy like a schoolgirl, because something, did toss a rock into camp. And we were way the heck back into the mountains where we were. So it was an interesting couple of nights.
Yeah, it's quite exhilarating when that happens, isn't it?
It is. But this is the same area that Corn from the No Such Thing podcast. It's the exact same campsite back in there that when he came down, something came down beside his tent. You've heard him about that, I'm sure.
Yep.
We didn't see it. It woke me up. I usually don't sleep in a tent, but it was cold, and I was in a tent with my son, and it was, I don't remember what time, probably 2 or 3 in the morning. Woke me up. He's screaming in his tent. There's something outside his tent. And of course, it's funny. He's laughed about it too. But I get out of the tent looking around. Whatever had come down to his tent was long gone. And you've had Cornell on your show before, haven't you, Steve?
I don't think I have, but I know Cornell very well.
Yeah, he's got that Irish accent. He just very flatly told me. We looked around, couldn't find anything, and he just very clearly he looked at me. He said, "I'm not getting back in that tent." And I was like, well, where are you going to sleep? He goes, I don't care. I'll sleep in the back seat of your pickup. I said, Cornell, it is completely full of stuff. He goes, I don't care. I'll sleep in the front seat. And so the next morning I get up. I'm usually up before everybody. And I get out of the tent, and I look over at the pickup, and Cornell is setting up in the passenger seat, and he's got his sleeping bag up over his head. And I'm like, well, it did get cold, And the thing is, Cornell won't make up anything to make himself look tough or anything. He'll just say, and I went over and I knocked on the window, and I said, did you get cold? He goes, nah. He said, you and Elijah's my son, by the way, y'all went back to bed. And he said, I'm looking at all these windows in this pickup. And he said, I thought, my God, what am I going to do if it comes and looks in at me? So he puts the sleeping bag over his head. So that he wouldn't see anything. I said, man, what would you have done if I'd have come up to the window during the night and just against that? He said, I would have just died. So
I would have screamed like Michael Jackson.
Whatever came down up to his tent that night, we didn't see it. We ruled out it being a bear because that's the first thing that came to mind. We do have a good population of black bear in southeast Oklahoma. But here's the thing about it being a bear. We had done everything wrong in bear country. We had cooked steaks on the skillets, so we had cooking grease, all our food laid out, not 10 foot from our tents. Whatever came down to his tent did not touch anything.
Which doesn't think much in a bear. Yeah, he's been nosing around.
If it had been a bear, it would not have even thought about coming up to any of our tents. It'd a beeline straight for the goodies.
Yeah.
You know,
doesn't say much for the cook either.
No, let me tell you, the food was great. You know, it really was. Cornell, he had before we had gone to the spot, we had gone to the grocery store and he had bought some like ribeye steaks and all of that. So, and my son, he's a great cook, and he had cooked. I mean, it was really good food. So, I mean,
nice.
But you know, a bear would have made for that. So whatever it was, I don't believe it was a bear.
Nice. And
well, that's interesting, and that's lucky too.
Yeah, bears usually hang
you know,
out
I've only in the wild down there, I've only ran into a bear twice, and both times they made a beeline the other direction as fast as they could go, which is exactly what I want them to do. I saw, since we got Joe from Western New York Bigfoot in here, I saw his strategy on Facebook for encountering bears this summer. He said he just hopes they're fatter and slower than he is. You know?
Well, you always carry a steak in your backpack. You know, a bear shows up, you throw it. Yeah. Run.
Well,
Run the other way.
no, I try to go to the woods with people I know I can outrun.
Yep.
You know?
Or we always,
no,
we
you would ask
me. We always volunteer the new guy. We always volunteer the new guy. He wears the steak on the clip strip, and he puts that on his belt loop. So, or the pork chop necklace.
You know, the vast majority of the time that I go down in the Kiamichi Mountains, and it's by myself, it's just easier to coordinate. It's hard for me to plan trips far out because I'm self-employed.
Sure.
I've been good, you know, like Cornell, he's been down twice. Of course, Will from Will Star Mysteries, he come down last October, but normally it's just I get a day, I just grab my gear and I take off. I'm fortunate enough, I live barely an hour's drive to the mountains where I go.
So let's get into the book a little bit. The Kiamichi Bigfoot. And
you actually said that right.
Yep. Well, I have a history with the Kiamichis. I've been to Oklahoma years ago. Atoka area, the river bottoms that lead into Texas, and then eventually go into because those bottoms go from southeast Oklahoma right down to Fouke, Arkansas. Which
you were in Atoka. Huh? If you were around Atoka, you were about 30 minutes from my house.
Yep. That was many years ago. So, but it was nice getting the lay of the land there. I saw the Kiamichis. Drove through Honabi,
and usually, I mean, a lot of people around here, they just use the Kiamichi's mountains generically. I mean, the Kiamichi Mountains proper is a sub-range of the Ouachita Mountains, and I do it too. I just say the Kiamichi Mountains anytime I'm down there, you know, whichever range I'm on.
But
anyway,
local term, would you say?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they use it all the way down into the Atoka area, like the Kiamichi area, Votech. They'll use that all the way over into McAllister, and McAllister's not even, you know, in the mountains yet. We just kind of generically use that term for, you know, far southeast Oklahoma.
Now, is that where Bigfootville happened? That particular documentary?
Well, actually, Bigfootville was filmed in a lot of different locations. And this is where, there's one part of Bigfootville where it's talked about where Clint and Gary Morgan, the two brothers, are talking about having their sightings, and it's talking about that being at Antlers. That was not at Antlers. That was less than 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And that sighting happened. See, I went to school with those guys, and I remember when I was in like the 7th or 8th grade, them showing up to school one Monday morning, just really excited. We saw Bigfoot, we saw this, and there was other people with them too. A brother and a sister is with them. And back then, what we'd do, living out in the country like we did, we would just, you know, before we were old enough to drive and stuff, we would go out in the woods, we'd camp and do whatever. And there was, from what I remember, dead cow or something at the edge of this field, and they were all said, well, let's sit out there and see if any, coyotes or something like that come up to it. And they were in that field. Of course, the edge of that field, that is actually featured on that part of Bigfootville. It didn't approach the dead cow, but something did come walking across that field and step right over the top of that fence, which scared them half to death. And when Bruce Burgess, he was the producer from England, was talking to me about anybody that I knew that had a Bigfoot sighting that would like to be on there. I hadn't talked to these guys since high school. So I called up Clint. He was, I believe, an EMT. He worked on an ambulance there at Ada at the time. I said, hey, do you remember that? Yeah. I said, did that really happen, or y'all pulling our leg? They said, no, that really happened. I said, okay, great. You think you and Gary would like to be on a segment of that deal? I said, yeah, we'll do that. But all those years later, that was, nearly 20 years. Well, let's see, probably 82 would have been 81 or 82 when that happened. And that was 2001. And they're like, no, that really did happen. And so that was in Hughes County where that happened. And from Hughes County, we went to Antlers and done some of the shooting. The part of it where Tim Harjo, the big Native American fella, was up on there, and he was pointing across at the opposite mountain, said, I'm not going to say, but you see that right there?
Yep.
Okay. They never clear it up on Bigfootville, so I will. That was a cow.
Yeah.
Okay. It was across on the other mountain. They couldn't tell where it was. I was not in that segment. I was at the bottom of that mountain waiting, and Martin, one of the cameramen, he got me on the walkie-talkie. He said, can you come up here? I'm like, man, it's going to take me a while to find you. And they said, well, we need water too. So I hauled up some water to them, and they said, David, do you see that over there? And it was a clear cut on the opposite mountain across the valley. And didn't have binoculars and stuff. And I guess my eyes were better than his. He goes, do you see that? I said, well, on which side of that cow are you talking about? And he said, that's a cow? I'm like, yeah, it's a cow. And I said, there's another close to the tree line. So anyway, they didn't get on Bigfootville and say, there's a Bigfoot, but they didn't say it wasn't either, Yeah.
So
they did.
That's kind of one of those edited for entertainment deals there.
Yeah. Well, they didn't film me saying that. That was just, they had already filmed that part, and it was useful to the thing. But yeah, that was a cow up there.
Hey,
so if anybody that watches it, when you see that part, it's I believe it was a Holstein, if I remember correctly, but it was but it was, to their defense, it was a long ways off,
Yeah.
But anyway, from there, now from Antlers, we filmed that section, and then we went down to Broken Bow and met with the guy that I was talking about that had talked to, contacted Roger Patterson, Dr. Lewis Stiles, who at this time lived in Broken Bow. And he says a few things from his museum on there. And that's where Martin, the one cameraman, challenged the game warden to an arm wrestling match, and the game warden, he's on there too. His name was Mike Virgin. He took part. The part at the end of the show where the Choctaw dancers are dancing around the fire at the very end, that was filmed on Dr. Stiles' property there. And, sadly, he passed away a few years ago. But and then we went from there up to where we filmed the ice storm. We were on top of a mountain off Highway 259 there. We did some filming there. And then we ended up in the far northeast corner of the state in the river bottoms below Grand Lake. And that's where the two off-duty police officers had their sighting. And that's where the one guy's acting really scared, That was not fabricated whatsoever. That fellow's name was Jeff. And if remembering right, that's the first time he was back in that area since they had their face-to-face sighting. And the other officer's name was Dan Belda, and sadly, he's not with us anymore either. He died back in not 3 years or more after Bigfootville. He died.
Oh wow! Yeah.
But now Dan is the one that contacted me about that sighting, And that's a good 200 miles from my house there. And just the sincerity of the email and then talking to him on the phone, I said, yeah, I'll go up there. The first time I was up there, Dan would not stay till dark. He left me down in that area. The creature they saw didn't do anything aggressive toward them, but it scared them to death. Jeff would not come down there for any reason. Now, when we did Bigfootville, of course, you had a camera crew and film crew and all that, so it wasn't nearly as scary. But he was still, you can tell by the show, pretty nervous about being there. Now, I would go back to that area several times. Now, after my second, third trip, I guess Dan saw that nothing ate me when I was down there, so he stayed. And one time he even brought a couple of guys from a SWAT team along with him, and they weren't out there to kill anything, but I remember walking with them through the woods, and this one, he had an AR-15. And I said, man, I'm taking for granted you're a highly trained law enforcement officer and you're not going to accidentally shoot me, right? And he's like, yeah, you got nothing to worry about. But we walked into a little clearing after dark. And have you ever heard a baby deer, a fawn, scream?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, it's hair-raising.
Yeah.
He stepped on one of these baby fawns, and that thing let out a scream. And this guy, I give it to him, he didn't shoot or nothing, but he just kind of melted straight down. I mean, he just like, I mean, it was funny. But the sighting that Dan and this other guy had, Dan was a police officer, and the other guy with him was a sheriff's deputy on the initial sighting, and they had been camping down there, as they did a lot. There's a lot of in those bottoms below the dam of Grand Lake. There's a lot of hills and stuff people go four-wheel driving on, and they were setting up camp. And there's at the bottom of this really high, like mountain, or you wouldn't call it a mountain if you're in Colorado, but we do down here. And then at the bottom, there's kind of a little trough and a berm that comes up, and they were hearing something on the other side. They thought it was an armadillo scooting around in the leaves. So they went around it. They were going to shoot the armadillo. When they come around this berm, what they were hearing was this Bigfoot scooting up the other side on its belly so it could look over at them. And when they ran around the side, it stood up like right in their face. And I said, what did you do? And I'm not going to use the language he used, but he basically said, I screamed like a girl and ran. And Jeff, the guy that was acting scared on the show that I said he really was, he froze. Dan grabbed him by the back of the shirt and jerked him backwards. They left all ear down there, and they abandoned everything, So that it was they really did see something down there. If it was not a Bigfoot, it was the most, to them anyway, convincing case of mistaken identity that they had ever saw. But I believe they did encounter a Bigfoot down in those bottoms.
A lot of people are changed after they have a sighting too. People who maybe used to go camping for a week or two every year, all of a sudden they're not so interested in camping anymore for vacation. And if they do go out camping, they're usually looking around for Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, and Dan, and after that, all the way up to a little after Bigfootville and stuff, Dan actually began helping me look into Bigfoot sightings. Like if I got a sighting from up in his part of the state that I thought was promising, I'd send him the email and the contact information. Said, Dan, you want to look into that and see if it's worth me driving all the way up there for? And then on the more westernish part of the state, a young lady, she was in Bigfootville a little bit too, named Shelly Harris. She would look into sightings that came from that part of the state and such. So, but we ended up Bigfootville back around, I don't know if y'all know, Steve, where Wewoka, Oklahoma is.
Wewoka, Oklahoma?
Wewoka.
No.
Okay, we ended it, and it is, it's in Hughes County as well, more northern Hughes County. But we ended up, the last shooting was done on a Seminole tribal elder's place, and that's where Tim Harjo and this elderly gentleman are sitting around a fire talking about, folklore and stuff. But a funny thing there is part of that, Martin went over to a little cedar tree and he stuck his night vision camera in the one of the limbs, and he was sitting back talking to it. This was after dark, right? And I was just about ready to go home. They didn't need me anymore. And this little Native American boy walks up, and he's to somebody that's there. He said, "Hey, there's a white guy over there talking to a tree." He couldn't see he couldn't see the camera in the tree, and in the dark, all he seen was Martin kind of kneeled down talking to the tree. You know, he said, "Hey, there's a white guy over to a tree." You know?
That's hysterical.
But anyway, that was it. I talked to Bruce and them. I said, "Look, if you're not going to film me, I live 30 minutes from here, and I'm going home." And that was that was the end of it. So, but yeah, it was a once in a lifetime adventure. I had a blast at it.
You know, it's always amazing to hear some of these behind the scenes, stories.
I love that stuff.
I could tell you more, but they wouldn't be appropriate.
I can tell you a funny.
Not anything that I did, but just like we were saying before the show started, that British humor being like Monty Python is very much a real thing.
Right.
They were a hoot to be around, I tell you.
We are the Bigfoot who say knee.
Oh my gosh, they didn't do that, but they would have if they'd have thought about it. I'll tell you behind the scenes. This is very funny. Of course, Tim Harjo was on there, and of course I knew Tim for a long time. He passed. Man, a lot of the older you get, the more people you know that died. But Tim, he passed away COVID a year before last. Very sad, but I've known him forever. But talking about premeditated, okay, we get to Antlers, and the producer stuff, they put us all up in a motel. And Martin, cameraman, he asked Tim, he said, "If I wanted the best chance of seeing a Sasquatch, what would you recommend I do?" He said, "Well," he said, "one thing," he said, "don't put on colognes and everything. Don't shower in the morning. Don't do any of that stuff. And you need to wear a shirt made out of a toe sack," which is what, what do you call the material, that rough material they put like potatoes and produce in? Like burlap. I'm keeping my mouth shut, and I'm looking at Tim. It's like going, "Man, I've known you a long time. You never said anything like that." And Tim is keeping such a straight face. So the next morning, we're all up early. It's still dark out. And I'm there watching them get all their camera gear ready. And Martin, he's got his toe sack shirt, which Tim just happened to have one with him. Just have. I'm like going, "Oh my gosh, this had to be premeditated." And and Martin's like, "Where's Tim and Kanjat?" Kanjat's Tim's son that was there as well. Looked up there, and they come out of their motel room freshly showered, their hair's still wet and all that. And Martin looks at me, he goes, "I've been had, haven't I?" And he was totally good. He was a totally good sport about it, and honestly, the last time I spoke to Tim, he was in my shop a couple of weeks before he passed away. And we were actually laughing about that. He said, "I just couldn't help it."
It's too bad we've lost so many good people over the years.
Yeah, I tell you, and he was one of those just happy-go-lucky guys. You just think they're always going to be there,
Yeah. Now, we do have a question from Ron. Do you know an area in the Choctaw Res that is supposed to be populated by Sasquatches, but no one will not allow anyone to go there?
Choctaw Res? No.
Okay.
The only see, there's a new law in Oklahoma that basically calls Oklahoma a res now. But it's Choctaw Res. There's like where I'm at, we're right on the border of Chickasaw and Choctaw, and just to the north of me slightly is Creek Nation. There's a Chickasaw, they call it a reservation called Oklahoma Reservation, that's just a few miles from where I'm sitting. And no, I've never. Now you may be thinking of the up around El Reno, the Cheyenne Arapaho reservation. I think that may be what you're confusing, because that's where a lot of stuff has happened over the years, and they don't take kindly to people coming on there looking for Bigfoots without permission, you know. So that may be the one you're talking about. I don't know of any. I've not heard of.
Yeah, northeast would be the Cherokee Nation.
I mean north. No, I'm sorry, northwest. Northwest, I mean to say.
Okay.
Up around. Okay. But yeah, if you go north and around Tahlequah, that's Cherokee.
Yep, I think Ron just said maybe Arapaho.
Yeah, I think I think that's what you're thinking about there around Concho and that area. That's where and I used to, keep my mouth shut about locations of where the casino footage and stuff was shot, but it's all over the internet. It's not a secret at all anymore.
Secret's out.
But
oh, I remember
that a long time ago. I would be being careful, just and then everybody but me's talking about. So I'm like, well, okay.
Joe said, can that shirt be combined with assless chaps asking for a friend? And
Joe is in form tonight.
He is. Michael Haywood said burlap long johns, perhaps.
Oh man, no, that would not be nice.
Man, this is just going south quick, isn't it?
Leave it to this crew to find something.
Are there any burlap shirts available in the Squatch Detective store? I mean, the Squatch-D TV store? Probably not.
No, can't say there is.
But that did bring up a good point, though. I mean, when you go out, you don't really want to be having all your Brute aftershave or Old Spicy or all that stuff on. Yeah. That makes sense. You wouldn't want to go out there.
Yeah, unless you're deer hunting or stuff, I don't really think it matters on this, because most of the sightings of a Sasquatch that I consider credible anyway are people just out doing their thing and just happen to see one, either catch sight of one looking at them or crossing the road or something like that. They don't dance around in front of your deer stand for 40 minutes showing you their teeth.
Yeah.
Blue Ridge Bigfoot just said, I've been to both Choctaw and Cherokee casinos.
No. I can honestly say I've never spent a penny in a casino gambling, but I have gone to concerts in them.
There you go. Yep. The funny thing is Bigfoot, like I say, Bigfoot's a primate. They get curious. You put a very interesting fragrance on you, it may. What is that? You never know. Not that I think their smell is.
I think evidence that, again, what I consider credible evidence just says that these things are curious about us. Yep. And I think they're smart enough to know we're bad news and not to get too close if they can help it. Yep. But.
And I agree. That is very true, Chris. I've said that 1,000 times. Primates have better eyesight than sense of smell. And if you think about it, it was kind of funny because if you were watching some of the Small Town Monsters productions, they had Cliff Barrickman on who made the same point I do, is that, Sasquatches have very flat noses, so they don't have all that room for those extra nerves for the sensory, the nasal sensory, or the scent sensories. So
well, do you think they all have the same nose, or do you think they're like us and they have different noses? 3 of us have different looking noses.
Very, very true, but we probably still have very similar amount of sensors and our nerve endings in our noses. As a Homo sapien, we all have generally around the same. Some may have more than others. I've known a few people that have had a lot more nasal sensors than I have, but it doesn't. The amount is minuscule compared to, say, a snouted animal like a bear or a hog or a raccoon, or a dog.
Hey, Mick Siphon there is making a comment about the casino footage. I can actually answer anything you want to know about that, because
he says I've heard of it but haven't seen it.
it's not a garbage bin. Yes, it's a dumpster, but it's not a garbage dumpster. It's a grease trap, which and I've got pictures of it. It's a dumpster type thing, but on the top, it's got a smaller square lid that they can lift up and put the grease in. And what was happening, this thing was coming up and either trying to or getting into the cooking grease that they were pouring out, which I imagine that probably might have been a tasty treat for it. But in the footage, the thing that walks up to this grease trap, there's a smaller light pole beside that grease trap that comes up and kind of hooks over it. And the light bulb is about 10 foot off the ground. And we were able to measure up that light pole that this thing was over 9 feet tall. And that, I still remember.
Is that video available anywhere?
No, not at all. The people that saw, I was a contact at that time briefly for the BFRO here in Oklahoma, and I'd received an email from Matt Moneymaker saying, on this reservation, there's a Sasquatch coming up, blah, blah, blah. Would you go check it out? I said, no, because that's up there right on the prairie. There wouldn't be a Bigfoot up there. And he said, well, they say they've got it on video surveillance, camera. And I said, yeah, well, I'll go up there. And after I got up there first, and it was still during the day, met with a gentleman named Keith Lumpmouth, which I just heard the other day. He is no longer with us either. And he showed me around, the area and such. And then later, closer to dark, another gentleman, and I called him BFRO proper. I mean, he was like really a part of it. I was just a brief contact, named Roger Roberts. He was a Vietnam vet, and by trade, he was a private investigator. He come up there. He had a friend of his with him that I don't know this guy's name. I can't remember it anyway, but he was not a Bigfoot guy. He was just a friend of Rogers that came along. We three were allowed into the security room to see that video. Okay. And it doesn't last very long. If the video was longer than or more of it, we didn't see any of it. All we saw was a few seconds. And the gist of what we saw was coming across the parking lot. The first thing you notice is what looks like a slight glow. Now, Roger, I heard an interview with him, a audio interview here from, I don't know, probably 2010 or whatever. Him and another guy are talking. Roger thinks that was eye shine. I thought it was like the street light glinting off the top of the hair on its head or something. I don't know. Either way, that doesn't change anything. But that's all you see at first. And then as it gets closer to the light that's over the grease trap, you see it materialize under the light. And I don't mean supernaturally. I mean just come into view. And it takes a couple of steps and it leans over toward the grease trap. That's where it cut off. Now, that story is actually what inspired me after all these years to do a YouTube channel, because I was hearing so many stories about what was in that video that just was not what that video was. I thought, what? I'm going to do a YouTube channel and I'm going to make one video just to say what was really in that. And as you see, some 100+ videos later, I didn't stop with the one. But,
anyway, I heard we finally had somebody on here that admits that video existed and had seen it, because all I'd ever heard about this footage was reported footage.
There's I'm thinking of anybody else. I want to say probably Alton Higgins. If you've heard that name, he's a wildlife biologist, which I briefly knew him. I think he probably saw it after I did, but that first time, it was me and Roger Roberts and that friend of Rogers, which I'm embarrassed not to remember his name, but I didn't really know him, But I knew that after the fact that the tribe there had Alton come on there looking around and stuff. And Alton actually had a sighting of one of these things running away from him, like into the woods. And he said it was huge. He said it was like he described it like a big black Brahma bull running on his hind legs size wise. And I'm like, well, that, 9.5 or so foot tall. That's, of course, in the, the security, the surveillance video, you can't really tell the color. All that we could really tell was it looked darker and it was covered with hair. Now, it was not, it wasn't bulky like, Patty was or whatever. It was real tall. It was real lanky, real tall and lanky. Sure. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about that, Dave. Was it long and lean, or was it bulky and muscled up? And then you already explained it's long and lean, correct?
I've got two questions.
I've got my friendly neighborhood possum I can hear just found the cat food outside the window.
Oh,
you can hear him when he's scraping trying to get the rest of that cat food. He slides that cat pan around. Anyway,
those possums can find it. They love it.
I tell you the comment I made to Roger when we were in that room, and we had to sign our names on some kind of release form or something to even be in there. So if they've got that, still my name is on a piece of paper for whatever that's worth. But I remember when we saw that thing and seeing how tall it was and everything, I remember looking over at Roger going like, wow, they really are real. Because up to that point, I had a pretty good idea they probably were, but up to that point, it was a fun mystery to look into. Right. And I'd taken reports from people that I deemed credible and stuff, but that I was like, that's not somebody in a monkey suit. But with the comparison I made, I was like, imagine an NBA player, that tall, lanky look to them and cover them with hair. You kind of had that. Now it didn't walk in a real straight up fashion. It was slightly leaning forward, as up to it. And like I say, it wasn't like a long drawn out video. What we saw was only, if I had to guess, 7 or 8 seconds, maybe,
So
in the scheme of things. Sure.
Question number one. So that video right now is in the nether. We have no idea.
Right.
That's never going to be out there.
Not unless somebody from that tribe releases it, which I don't see it happening, because what happened not long after that is word had got out and people were trespassing all over there looking for Bigfoot on tribal land. They were coming in the casino not to spend money, but to ask about Bigfoot. And they put a stop to all of that pretty quick.
I wonder if they destroyed the video or it got taped over in a loop or something.
I would be real surprised. You think about it. Even if you didn't want anybody to see it, if you had something like that, surely you would keep a copy. But I can't speak for them, but I would hope that they kept it. I'd like to see it again. It's been 20 years.
And finally, the question is you're convinced the video was authentic?
Oh yeah, because what we seen was not a copy. What we saw was right there in that room directly. That it wasn't after the fact. We were in the security room and had them replay it right there.
And so, just by your reaction, I could tell that you were convinced that not only was the video authentic, but it was actually a Sasquatch, which is really cool.
Well, what else could it be?
Yeah.
What else is over 9 feet tall that walks up to a grease trap? Now here's the thing. That's west of Oklahoma City, over there close to El Reno. And it is fading to prairie. Now there's a lot of we call them scrub oak, black oak, fence, post oak type woods with a lot of, shorter trees and, stuff like that. But you also have the North Canadian River running through there, which is exactly where back in the early 70s, they had the sightings of the Bigfoot that they were calling the Chicken Man. So it's all in that general area. Now, my thoughts on it, there's not enough cover for a population of these, or even for one of them to stay there all the time. I think it just happens to be a place that as they traverse that river, Now, on that wooded area that's on the tribal land there's a lot of natural springs in there. So where there's a lot of deer and game animals that's around it just for the springs. So I kind of like, for lack of a better term, maybe a way station that from time to time they pass through that area and move on. But there's not enough cover for a creature like a Bigfoot or a family unit of them to just stay there.
Right.
It's amazing it's what I love going back to this, because that was, pre this new era of Bigfoot research.
Right.
2003, 2002, somewhere in there, 2004. And, this is the stuff of legend that I remember was this casino video. And always heard ruminations about it. So it's really cool to hear you talk about it. So that's awesome.
I'm looking at the comments over here as well. So go ahead if you got another question.
Yeah, I see.
Well, I was looking for the video online. Once again, of course, I can't find anything. I've never seen it online. I've seen a video.
I have talked.
Go ahead.
There's a lady, she lives not far from me now. She's a member of that tribe and you work there at the casino, said that she's seen it at one time. And then somebody told me they were at a Bigfoot convention and somebody had it on his cell phone and he had just recorded a video of the deal. But what they were describing, I said, well, if it is, that's not what I saw, along with Roger. And one of the stories that was going around, and this is the one that got me, is somebody said in the video, it shows a Bigfoot run up and open up the garbage, the trash bin, grab a couple of bags of trash and run off with it. And I'm like, well, if there's a video that shows that, then that would mean there's two videos there, because that is not.
That's not right. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Now, that's not saying they didn't see a video like that, but it is saying that if there's that one, they got more than one video.
Right.
It's almost like, and that's very typical of, you have these videos and there's always some fly in the ointment over there trying to say something was on the video that wasn't. How many times even in, as I say, the real world scenarios of about, people were talking, was that young lady that went missing last year with Brian Laundrie had killed. There was all kinds of rumors about what was these supposed videos of Brian Laundrie saying this or doing that. And certainly wasn't true. So that sometimes that's how these things kind of spin out of control a bit. You always have to fly in the ointment saying, oh, I saw it too. Again,
I'm glad to learn that video does exist or did exist, because I'd heard a lot about it.
And, not to be fair about it, I mean, and of course, Roger's talked about it. I've heard on it, and I haven't spoken to Roger. God, I hope he's still alive. He was a really nice guy. But since I worked with him a little bit, he and I investigated a couple of different sightings for the BFRO back then. And it's funny, on the BFRO website, on the one sighting in LaFleur County, they still have me listed as a BFRO investigator. And I was never what you'd call a card carrying member, so to speak. But, especially back at that time, they had the most comprehensive database of sightings back then. So to even be considered a contact for them at that time was kind of a privilege, I thought, But Roger and I investigated a sighting by a fisherman there in LaFleur County as well, and I go over a lot of that stuff in my Kiamichi Bigfoot too. So
now, next question I have is do you have much knowledge? Because the gentleman that was at the centerpiece of this event has kind of fallen off the map. But do you remember the siege at Honaby? Or for those people?
Yeah, but I did not investigate that.
Right.
So, will not comment on it.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
I'm very careful. I try the opinions that I have that I have strong opinions about, I try to base them on evidence that I have seen or taken part in myself. That one I did not. Now, that one would have been, Roger Roberts, that is one that he looked into before I ever met him. So no, that would not be me.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. Nice to know. So let's talk about, again, let's get back to the book. What can one find in your book?
The Secrets of the Universe.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
You've been talking to the professor, haven't you?
Yes. There is a chapter on there how but uses his shamanic abilities to heal everything from leprosy to migraine headaches. No, but seriously, it's just there's a chapter in it where I go in detail about working with the Travel Channel, funny stuff and all behind the scenes, a lot of fun. There's a chapter where I share other people's sightings that they had sent in with me and given me permission to put in. There are like the area that Cornell come down to. There's the longest chapter in there involves that location. Amon Chris.
Today's book taught me to read.
Excuse me. The longest chapter in there is about that particular area and what got me going down there in the first place, which was a sighting by a man on horseback that saw one of these things walk down to the road, see him, and run back into the woods, and which that led to an investigation of his sightings, his one sighting, and I still go to that same area. Cornell's been there, come down and gone there twice with me. Will from Will Star Mysteries come down last year, October. So, and it's an ongoing. I plan on going back there again and again.
David, according to your own research, I know you've done a lot, and I'm going to ask you your opinion. In your opinion, do you feel like Bigfoot Sasquatch is a biological animal, or do you put any weight into it's some kind of spirit thing?
Well,
what's your
again,
opinion?
going back to me basing my opinion on evidence that I've found, I personally have not found evidence to lead me to think it's anything but a biological creature. Now, do I discount the paranormal in general? No. I think there's a lot of things we don't understand. So, evidence that I have found is in footprints such as that, sightings that I've received. The vast majority of the sightings that I've received are of a biological flesh and blood creature that really doesn't want to be close to us, but is so curious it just can't help it sometime but coming close to see what we're up to.
Yeah,
good deal.
Very true. Now, what would you say was the most interesting case you've ever dealt with?
The most interesting wow. The most interesting as far as on that lasted a while would have been that involving Mark Copeland down in Pushmataha County close to Antlers, where he had reported that these things were coming up and looking in the window at his kids and stuff like that. I'd been to his property, and of course they moved. They left that area and he moved back to Arkansas. I found on his property evidence of 3 different Sasquatch, and the evidence that I'm pointing to is footprints. Okay, there's the smallest one was about the same length as my foot, but is a lot wider. There's a picture of it in my book here. The longest would have been right under 15 inches, and then there was one even between that. And I don't mean just finding one foot. If I find one footprint out there by itself and there's nothing before or after, I'm writing that off.
Right.
Okay. But I mean, along a trail, there's a lot of leaf litter, but there's these game trails going through there, and looking in that area is where I would, you'd find these indentations in the leaves, and then if you follow them long enough, you'd find one of them, quite a bit
clear
clearer.
spot. Yeah,
right,
exactly
like that. So, such as that, and there, just the stuff going on there, it really had him and his family pretty freaked out. Matter of fact, and Carrie did a really good job doing that documentary on Mark's Place. Carrie Arnold did. He come up there with his friend Brad Hatcher, and they did a documentary on Mark's Place and did a phenomenal job with it.
But let me write this down. David, do you know what the name of that documentary is? Because I'd love to see it.
It's on Bigfoot Odyssey's website.
Okay.
I said it's on Bigfoot Odyssey.
Okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm sorry.
No,
something
that's
new.
fine.
If I haven't seen it, I want to see. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, it's on a Bigfoot Odyssey's website. I don't remember what number it is, but it was done about 2 years ago, but he didn't get it all put together until I want to say Christmas of the fall.
Right.
So it'd probably be about December 21. I think December 21 will be around that area where it will be on there. And y'all know Kerry, he died in a car wreck a few months ago. But I believe they still, I believe, yeah. And the thing is, I talked to him like the day or so before that, because he's wanting me to come on and do a show, and then he's gone. But anyway,
yep, that's why I canceled my newspaper subscription there, David. Every time I start reading through the obituaries, dang, I know him. Dang, I know him. Dang it.
Yeah,
that was very tragic. What I'm saying. That's the thing about getting older. You know more people that die. Yep. And and I know some people criticize the way Kerry did some of his stuff, but Kerry was a very nice fella, and he was and I was impressed when he was doing the documentary with at Mark Copeland's place. He was very unassuming. He didn't lead anybody. He let Mark have his say and all that. He just treated everybody with utmost respect. So, I had a good impression of him with that. But back to the documentary, I'm not sure what is it 168?
168,
but
I think.
Yeah, he interviews Mark, and Mark gets very emotional talking about the harassment his kids got at school and stuff like that from it. So it wasn't, but he was, any kind of notoriety about it. He moved off, and he contacted me in the first place and was telling me about it, and I come out and looked around at his place and all a few times. So, but yeah, last I looked, Bigfoot Odyssey, the YouTube channel is still up as kind of a memorial, and you can go back, and it's worth watching. He did a good job with it.
Yeah.
David, when you were checking out those prints, did they seem like did they tend to have straight sides on them, kind of angled up from the bottom, or did you have an instep on one side or the other? Can you remember?
They weren't that detailed. We all like to remember they're not that detailed. I made a cast of one of the bigger ones, and from the cast it does look like the heel slopes down narrower,
right.
But it's really not a good cast. I just wanted to do it because it was in leaf litter, okay? And I just kind of carefully lifted some leaves out of it and poured it. So really what you can get from that track is just how long it is, really, because it's not anything you would have like dermal ridges or anything like that. But I'll put it this way, there's been times in the past around a track somewhere that I thought that's not worth casting at all. And then I'd go home. I was like, why didn't I just pour the plaster in there? You know,
Right.
that's kind of the way I am now. You can always throw the darn thing away when you get home if you still don't like it, but you can't. If you're a long ways from it, you're not going to just go driving all the way back to do it. So I tend, if I think it's worthwhile at all, I'll try to make a cast of it.
That's another good reason to always carry casting material and a bottle of water in your pack, because you never know.
Yeah, and you know, when you're out in those woods there, it's a rare thing to find one with really good detail, because there's all the leaf litter, pine needles, and all that stuff everywhere. It's unless you can get a Sasquatch to just be really nice about it and go over and find a nice muddy spot and step in it. You know?
Yeah. That's the trick, man. You can, if you spot the indentions in the leaf litter, and you're like, if it's a little wet, and you can follow them along, looking, hopefully trying to find a spot where it was clear. You know, a lot of times you're just going to find a boot track when you get to that spot. You know, so it's hard to know unless you put in the work. You know, but I think that's a really smart idea. If you find one track, you know, just discount it. It may not be anything. But if you find a track way and you can trace it down, you might be able to find a good set of left and rights in there.
Man, that would be great. I have not been that fortunate yet.
I almost think that it sounds like there may have been like a family unit there having those three different sizes, you know, from biggest to largest.
Well, and again, I don't think that these things were staying there. Because anything of that size, if they stay there for an extended period of time, there's going to be all kinds of evidence from something that size. But the evidence that I was seeing, if you went north of where Mark's place was another 10, 15 miles, you're in the foothills of the Kiamichi Mountains. You go south just a little ways, you're in the floodplain of North Texas there, where you've got a lot of sightings on each place. Now, I think these things are just passing through, because there was another group of people. Now, what were this other group called? They had a cabin in the woods south of Mark. I think Mark said about 5 miles or whatever. And some of the footprints that they were showing seemed to be the size as the ones that was on Mark. So I was wondering, well, are they? And I can't speak to the credibility of this group of people at all. I don't know them. To me, it would make sense. Now, Mark has neighbors and stuff. He was asking them, did y'all ever see anything here? And nobody else had. But one of his neighbors was like a disabled person that didn't really get out of the house, and no kids. And the other neighbor didn't as well. I think the wild card was Mark had little kids, so maybe these creatures were curious. Like the one little boy, the first hint he had of it was he got one of the little battery-powered Jeeps that the little kids can drive. And the little kid said, when he got it, he says, well, he can't catch me now. And he said, what are you talking about? And he said, the big black man in the woods. And he wasn't meaning a black man like racially. He was talking like color of this thing. Right. And he said, yeah, he follows me when I leave this, like when I get off the school bus. So what his kid was saying was when he get off the school bus and would walk to the house, and from the bus stop to his house about 100 yards, okay, the driveway. And you had the tree line there, and he said it would walk inside the tree line and just kind of pace him on the way back. And then it wasn't long after that, he come in and said there was a bear looking in the window at him, but it was, you know, and it had a white face and all they say. There's a chapter in my book that I go into detail on those things as well.
That's very, very interesting. I think along the same lines, I think maybe they are interested in the children.
That's to me, that's chilling.
Yeah.
You know,
and it did. It had Mark very worried, because he's like, well, are my kids in danger? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I know if it was my kids, I had little kids there, I'd be concerned too. Now, my opinion, do I think Sasquatch is out to get people? And I say this every time. No, I do not. And if they are, they're not very good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I don't think they're out to do anything or hurt the kids or anything. But you know, again, you can't be inside.
We just lost Chris.
Okay. Yeah, and Chris, you're right. You cannot be inside because just like people, not every person's a good, honorable person. You know, so there's no way I would risk my children, you know, with something like that. And Chris is frozen, making a very good point there. It's got.
That's all.
We could guess. Is Chris angry?
Go ahead, Dave.
Is it?
There
he is.
The man in black cut me off.
Oh my gosh, the government can
come back.
Oh, you missed it.
Okay.
I just got a screenshot for the next show of me doing the same thing you were doing while you were.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. But yeah, that was an interesting case, you know, and I felt bad when Mark, you know, moved to Arkansas, but at the same time, I completely understand it. You know,
now did he move
because
because of all this stuff?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it had part to do with it.
Leon in the house.
Hey, Leon is here.
Good to see you.
As is Flat Rock and Mr. Lee 3PO popped in. Don Fuller's in the house now. Charlie Wonton is in the house.
Don. Charlie.
So, hello, guys. Welcome.
And there was Mick.
Yeah,
when
you say to pin it down to the most interesting, all of them that I find credible, I find very interesting. You know, but Mark's was the stuff going on his property was just almost overwhelming because it was, you know, so consistent.
Well, it's understandable why he moved too. I mean, it's as any parent, you know, there's a concern.
Well, and he had seen his parents lived right there beside them. You know, it was his folks' property, and they had moved. Him and his family had moved from Arkansas to be closer to, you know, his dad and all to help take care of them. You know, because they were older as well. Nice people.
And did they have any experiences, or did they witness some of that stuff that was going on as well?
You know, his dad didn't really get out of the house. I can't say, because really what I was looking into and stuff was Mark's immediate family, him and his kids.
I mean, how far apart were their houses? They weren't like next to each other.
Not far, not far at all. I mean, you could throw a rock from one to the other.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So the common denominator there is what made them curious was the children. Yeah.
Right.
I would think. Right. I would think so. Especially probably seeing the little one at first, and then just kind of following and leading into that whole. That's amazing story. You know.
And then of course the one up in the river bottoms of Grand Lake with the two off-duty law enforcement officers. That, you know, that was the real deal. Like I say, if it wasn't a Sasquatch, they saw something that both of them misidentified, and I just don't think they did, because that was a face-to-face encounter. And I went over it over and over. I'm like, Dan, is there any chance that was a bear? And it almost insulted him. He's like, I know what a bear is. This was like a person covered in a reddish brown hair in our flashlight, stood up in my face. I said, dude, I gotta ask. You know, that's honest investigation, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's, you know, and I've always said that too. It is like you have so many people, you know, people say, oh, witnesses are horrible. They're not reliable. But, you know, if a bank is robbed, people will give 5 different people will give 5 different descriptions, but they're all seeing a person. They're not seeing like one person saying, oh, I saw a bear walking out of the bank stealing the money.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point.
It is, as you know, extremely important, if at all possible, to get a witness's statement as close to when it happened as you possibly can. You know, and that's, you know, a lot like you were saying, somebody robs a bank, everybody that watches it may have a little bit different take on it. I remember an interview with a mafia hitman back in like the late 80s. His favorite place to take out a hit was in public, because he said everybody that's there within a day or so is going to have a different description of me. Yep. And that's not anybody lying. That's under stress. Right. When the person's in shock, their mind will fill in the blank.
Right. Exactly. Which I think is a lot of the answer to our paranormal claims with the creature as well.
Well, I think it's two different things. Like I say, I do not discredit the paranormal.
Right.
I just don't. I think it's two different things. Right. But I think there's such thing as ghosts and things like that. Yeah, why not? But I can't measure that.
What I'm saying is, if somebody says, "Well, the Bigfoot just disappeared in front of me," I think part of that is their mind trying to interpret what's going on. They've just had all the stressors, and their mind regresses a little bit. Next thing you know, it's gone. Where to go? So I think that's
well,
part
like,
of it.
And I'm careful not to speak for anybody else like that, but
sure.
I do have a report that I received from down on the by a Veterans Lake, a place called Rock Creek, which is west of me about 40 miles, Chickasaw Recreational Area, Arbuckle Mountains, where this guy, he believed, and the thing is, I know exactly where he's talking about, because I fished that creek and I know the area he saw this, that a Sasquatch, he believes that it stepped right into a tree and disappeared. The guy's not lying, but I know where he was at, and I'm like going, okay, did that happen, or did it step behind the tree and scoot out of there pretty quick
Sure.
into the brush behind it? And again, not speaking for the guy, but that's a very feasible thing, and which makes more sense. Did it disappear into a tree trunk, or did it zip behind it and go back through the brush?
And I think that's great. Everybody should always consider it could be an error in perception.
Right.
The
creature could have turned.
Yeah. But I think it's important when you're taking a report from somebody to make sure you're letting them describe what they perceived.
Yes.
Sure.
Because otherwise you don't have their report.
Right. Exactly.
Now, let's take an argument these things could disappear like that. If that's the case, we got something totally different than what I've been looking into all these years.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't measure that myself.
Yeah. The way I look at it is you always let the witness speak, and you always have a time for, as the investigator investigating, you always have time for your own commentary.
Yeah, I'm laughing at Amon Chris commenting over here. I wasn't laughing at you. Amon Chris or Amon Chris.
Amon Chris.
Most animals.
Yeah, blend in.
No need
there
to be Romulan. Well, see, I would have never thought they were Romulans, so you may have some information that I don't.
Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor,
there you go.
Not an engineer.
Oh, Mick says, I'd like to point out that the Kiamichi Mountains are only a 3-hour drive from Falk, Arkansas.
Yes, the same. That whole area is that whole area. The river bottoms that come off of the Kiamichis, that whole area, they're all river bottoms. They all lead down into Falk.
I was down not far from there, just in October as well. I spoke at the Jefferson Bigfoot Conference, which was totally unplanned. I was invited to come down there just to sell my books. I said, okay, great. And Craig Woolheater, the fellow that organizes that, I got down there and he said, hey, would you consider speaking for 30 minutes? And I went, yeah, okay, why not? What it turns out is they had booked Lauren Coleman to talk, and Lauren wasn't able to come, so they put me in his spot. I'm a nobody, and he's well known, And I spoke right after Lyle Blackburn, which Lyle, you know, he's well known from his TV appearances, and he's a heck of a musician too. And my first thing I said was, well, I'm following Lyle Blackburn, filling in a spot that was supposed to be held by Lauren Coleman, so no pressure.
Yeah.
But, you know, but anyway, there, what's that lake right
Caddo
outside
Lake.
of Jefferson?
Caddo Lake.
Caddo.
Yep.
Caddo Lake. Yeah. I went down there, and it's funny because there were a bunch of people on this dock there, and I took my wife down there just to look around on the way out. Well, it wasn't on the way, but we went back and looked and ran into a bunch of people that knew me from my YouTube channel there.
Wow.
And I'm like going, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. And they would tell me their screen name, and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay. You know, and Keith Crabtree was down there, the guy that wore the suit and that. And I got a picture taken with him. And he's really tall. He's an older gentleman now, but he's very tall. And on the way out from there, I was leaving, I heard somebody yell my name, and it turned out it's a guy that I knew from Ada, that him and his wife moved down to that area, and they were going to play some music on that dock. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm running into, you know, all these folks down here that I kind of know who they are. And by the way, my wife doesn't believe a thing about this Bigfoot stuff. And when I was talking, I told him, I said, hey, she's Dana Cy Fox Mulder. You know, and we got invited by the NOBRO guys, that Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Research Organization. They were doing a camp out in Biatoka, Boggy Depot State Park. It's like, yeah, you know, they're real nice. We got there, and my wife's very plain spoken, and they're like, see, we're nice people. She goes, I know you're nice people. I just don't know why y'all waste your time on non-realistic things like this. So, yeah, she would believe it if one walked up to her. She would believe it, you know, and she still won't let me leave her out in the woods for bait, though.
I can totally relate. Totally, Dave. No problem. My wife is a non-believer. She hasn't seen one yet, and she don't want to see one.
I got a question from Gregory Miller. Gregory, welcome to the show. David, do you have anything booked for Tennessee, in for Townsend or Gatlinburg in 2020?
No, I don't. And really, this last year is the only time I've ever spoken at any type of conference or whatever. But they've got me booked to do Honubby next year, as far as I know. And, you know, it was a lot of fun, you know.
You missed me in Texas by a year. I was there in 2021. Spoke at Jefferson in 2021.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything at it, but I was at the very first Texas Big conference in Jefferson back in 2001. I got to sit down and have a good long conversation with Dr. John Bindernagel while I was there, just me and him. Which is I got pictures of me and him. I think I got pictures of us in the book here as well. But yeah, he was a really nice fella, you know.
Yep. Very intelligent. Yep.
He really believed the best about people, because we were talking about hoaxes, and he just didn't want to think that people did that much. I'm like, yeah, hang around a little bit more down here, and you'll find some, you know. But anyway, the most obvious hoax I ever had anybody try to do on me was a guy down in Pushmataha County back in the early 2000s telling me he had killed a Bigfoot and he had the body buried there in the foothills of the Kiamichi Mountains. And he was emailing me, wouldn't meet with me. And then when he did, he wanted me to come alone to this non-disclosed area into the woods with him. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm not coming alone. I don't know you, blah, blah. And then he just kind of fell off the map. But it's obvious hoax, you know.
Sound like Bullet Maker.
Bullet Maker.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, with the
I don't know who that is.
Oh, that's a long
that's a long time ago. Matter of fact, I don't think he's with us anymore.
Probably.
Bullet Maker.
Yeah, I forget his real name, but he had this trail cam photo, and it looked like it was probably a groundhog or a beaver or something of the like, because it's just a little bit of brown fur. It wasn't hair; it was fur. And he tried to make. He was trying to say,
yeah. It was a porcupine, wasn't it?
I don't know. Oh no, that's Chris Noel.
No.
Further
back.
I'm sorry.
No, this was a game camera shot, and it was, and it did look kind of weird at first, but then when you really look, it's just a porcupine kind of standing up and moving, But
he was trying.
Gregory Miller, thank you, man. That's a nice thing to say. I went to school with a guy named Greg Miller. That's not you, is it? So.
And Blue Ridge Bigfoot says he requested to be added to Gatlinburg.
But yeah, I haven't. Don't have any plans to go to Tennessee or any of that. Not that I wouldn't like to, but.
Yeah, well, this June I'll be speaking in Alabama at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference.
Which state is it that's got that land between the lakes that people talk about all the time? Is that Tennessee?
That's
Kentucky. Well, it's way over. Yeah, Western Kentucky. That's about as far west as you can get.
Yeah. So what is it? What is it that's stalking Land of the Lakes? Is that a Bigfoot or is that a tribe of dog people?
I wouldn't put much.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, I wouldn't put much faith in finding a dog man over there, but I would think there's a lot of activity Bigfoot related over there. I believe.
Yeah, I see that area mentioned a lot. Joe, I can't autograph one and mail it to you. You just need to call me at the store, and because I can only do credit card over the phone through my music store. But I have done that before. I just have to figure out what the shipping is. I'll tell you what, though, my autograph is so sloppy, you could probably just do it yourself and say I did. But yeah,
we get a certificate of authenticity.
There you go. No, hey, I tell you what, Steve, my autograph is so bad I could sign prescriptions with it.
Oh, nice.
Doctor's signature being so bad.
Oh, we better be careful and not say that with YouTube's new terms of service.
Well, yeah.
Mike Spawn says, my wife can kick my butt. She's a 5-foot Chinese beauty, and her kung fu is very powerful. My wife is from South Korea, and she doesn't know any kung fu. Do you have autographed puppies? Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama.
Wow. So we've only got like 20 minutes left for the show. It's gone by really fast tonight.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So if anybody's got any questions in the chat, throw them out there at this time, because we're going to be, rounding up the troops here in a little bit.
Yeah, but before we start rounding up, let me ask David.
Right ahead. He's got questions. Yep.
I was going to this, and then I keep getting disconnected by the Men in Black or the local squirrel on the cage that's running the internet in Kentucky is taking a break. So, oh gosh, wait a minute. Train of thought. It went off the tracks. The squirrel derailed me here.
I do that too. Don't feel bad.
I don't have a train of thought. I have a train wreck of thought. So, when do you expect your new book to be out?
Depends on when I get time to sit down and write more. But I try to get my books around the 40,000 word area. That's just a mental thing to give me something to write toward. And I'm a little over halfway through that now. I've got a couple more people I want to talk to get permission to use their story in that. It's going to be a little different format than this one. This first book is very like autobiographical in a sense, with some other people's accounts in it. The new one's going to have more of other people's accounts, and then there's even one chapter, because the reports I've gotten over the year are not just Bigfoot. Yes, I have got reports of other type of weird things in the woods. You know, I'm going to have a chapter where I include those, and it's going to have a big disclaimer at the first that I'm not endorsing the, you know, these are not necessarily my endorsement of these things, but they are, however, reports that I've received. There'll be more things like that in it.
David, earlier you were talking about them being in a certain area, but you didn't think they remained there all the time. Do you feel like, I don't want to get in and say, ask you if you think they migrate, but I mean, do you feel like they maybe possibly move from one area to another different times of the year and then create like a home range there temporarily, or you know?
I don't know. I mean, I think the evidence is overwhelmingly that they're hunter-gatherers that move from place to place and migrate there. Now, do I think they migrate from Florida to Maine? I don't think there's any evidence for that. Right. But just you know, like anything, they're going to stay there while the food's there and then move to where the, you know, they deplete an area there, go to that. Now, when we consider the Ouachita Mountains, there is plenty of room, or the Kiamichi Mountains right there. There's plenty of room for a smallish band or family unit of these creatures to migrate all over that area. Right. You know, say Oklahoma to Arkansas or whatever. So yeah, I would think they would have to be at least in a short way migratory.
The Kiamichi Mountains that's an area large enough to where they were not going to run out of a food supply anytime soon. No. You know, if they do indeed eat deer and stuff like that, we're not low on them at all. Right. As many times as people run over them, they need to step it up a little bit and eliminate some more of them, you know. But no, they unless they had, in places like this are getting harder to find, unless there was a really isolated area that had a big food supply that people were not visiting, that they were not intruded on very much. That might make sense, but man, there's just not a lot of places like that. Now a lot of your, like, take your wildlife management areas. You know, those are pretty, for the biggest part here in Oklahoma, pretty remote. And if it's not deer season, you go down into those places, you probably won't run into anybody. So areas like that would be ideal for them to, like, you know, hang out in for a while. But then when deer season starts, they're going to have to lay low during the day anyway, you'd think. Right. I'm just thinking out loud, you know, that's makes sense to me.
Yeah, you were wondering, Dave, earlier that, you know, wow, where are these trail cam pictures coming from, or these videos coming from? Is my backyard, because like literally a half a click to the north of me, there's a small preserve. So and they're definitely bringing in some very interesting animals. The only one I haven't caught yet is the possum. I know I've seen a possum running around here somewhere, but he hasn't showed up on the ridge just yet.
Oh man, just leave some cat food or dog food on the back porch. He'll be in.
Oh, I don't.
Possums are cool. Possums, they don't carry rabies. They eat ticks. I mean, they're cute. They only live for a year or two. Man, that's terrible. Short lifespan.
Yeah.
But you know, you're talking about remote place. Right behind me, not a mile back here, there's a thick wooded canyon that there's literally nothing in. That would be a great place for something to hang low for a while. And I go hike back there quite a bit. As of now, I haven't found anything that leads me to believe that a Bigfoot has passed through there, but it would sure be a good spot.
Oh, Mick. Yeah. Squirrel got me a while ago, Mick. Sorry, bud.
But anyway.
Yeah, those possums, we have one. If the wife forgets and leaves dog food on the back porch out during the night, then we have a possum comes around. And man, our Yorkies have a fit. They act like they want to go out there and just tear it to pieces. In truth, the possum, if it didn't play dead, it could probably whip any of them with one arm or one paw behind its back.
Yeah, possums are cool. They open that mouth to show you their teeth, and if that don't work, they fall over.
Yeah.
They try to scare you. It's kind of funny. I saw this guy many, many years ago in Louisiana, thought his pit bull was all tough, and there was a possum caught in a trash can. He goes, "Watch this." He thought his pit bull was going to tear apart the possum, and he kicked over the can. The possum comes out, looks at the pit bull. The pit bull looks at the possum, and the possum let out this ungodly hiss at him. And the pit bull turned around with its tail between his legs and booked it off.
I had a German Shepherd pup. This was a long time ago. Literally killed the same possum twice one summer, and I knew it was the same possum because it was had an accident and part of its tail had been cut off, and it would run up to it and it would bite it, and the possum play dead, and that's all. It just like, done my job, So cool animals, though. I love animals.
Yeah, they are. Yep, definitely. I think that's part of the enticement to this, because you and me seem to have a similar path of how getting involved in this. We both have that curious. We love a good mystery. We love a good investigation.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is really cool because this is something you can put your hands on, rather than because many years ago I did delve into the UFO mystery. That was kind of boring. Okay, you saw that in the sky. What am I going to do with that? Even ghosts and the paranormal. At least now, now we can do EVPs and you'll get something interesting. Mm-hmm. But for this Bigfoot mystery, what I love about it is not only, you can get your hands on stuff like tracks and broken trees and witnesses and getting out, but you get out into those forests and you're just surrounded by amazing things, scenery, fauna, and wildlife. And,
there's no such thing as a failed trip.
No, not at all.
No such thing.
And, the toys we bring like night vision and thermals, I just love therming deer. I mean, to me, it's like, wow, we can actually see them. They don't know we're here, or they're acting normal. And it's nice to see them just acting normal and not running off or scampering off. It's like the Trail Cam project. I'm just loving.
Did you see on my YouTube channel? I've got a very short video of a cottonmouth striking my GoPro.
Oh, geez, that's
I'll have to check that out.
This is one of the trips I was down there. This was last hot, dry summer we had here. And there are small holes of water, and they were all full of cottonmouths. And I like, one under this rock, I could see his tail. So I got my GoPro down, and he wasn't biting, but he was hissing. So I kind of got closer to him, and he goes, pow, he struck. And on the video, I slow it down in slow motion, and you can see his fangs actually extend. And then I left him alone, went on. And I noticed later, I said, man, my GoPro's kind of blurry looking through there. It's like, there's some venom on the lens there, and people's like, well, they're like, did you kill it? Did you kill it? I said, no, why would I kill it? It's like, it's down there. All it wants to do is eat frogs and fish. I was messing with it, but, I was,
you're in his home. You're in his home. You're not, he's not.
Yeah. I mean, I was, he wasn't trying to mess with me, but I was so happy to get that shot of him.
That's amazing.
Striking that. Did you find it? Or are you looking for it?
Oh, no, Chris is looking for it. I think.
I'll find it later. I'll get it.
Yeah. So tell.
It shows it in real time strike, and then I slow it down in slow mo.
I'm gonna check that out. That's too good not to watch. I I like to see that.
Now,
not necessarily care about snakes, but the stripe.
And for folks who are wondering, what's your channel's handle? Do you have a handle for your YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is just Bigfoot and More. Bigfoot and More. And of course my Facebook page is just David Wilbanks, and I just use it kind of to advertise my books. I don't like Facebook as far as gossip and crap like that. That's not me, but it is a good avenue to put my book out there. And I've got another YouTube channel. It doesn't have very many subscribers at all. It's just called Dave's Outdoor Channel. But maybe some educational videos on snakes and stuff on there. There's one, if y'all want to see me get stung by fire ants, I've got a video on there of me sticking my hand down in a fire ant bed, let them sting me. I do it twice in that video. But I'm not that allergic to their bite. I mean, they itch a little bit, but it's not that bad.
Next time you want to do something silly like that, let me know. We'll send Professor McGillicuddy down there, and he can do it.
You know what? That would make one heck of a comedy there. But make sure you're not prone to anaphylactic shock from the venom of the bite.
I'm not going to get bit. McGillicuddy is. We'll have to make sure. we'll have to take him to the vet and get all his shots before he goes down.
Yeah, but those alter egos, that venom carries over to the real you too. And I have been slightly envenomated by a copperhead before, and it was my own fault. I had a copperhead and I was milking its venom into a glass, just being me, and I was holding it, and I was noticing, man, my thumb is burning, and I reached out here and I dropped it, and I realized I had cut myself on the thumb earlier, and some of that little booger's venom had run down into that cut.
Not nice.
Nope.
Just washed it off. It's fine.
Wow. Well, Chris, it is now 10:52, so we do got to be wrapping up now.
Yeah.
So, David, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It has been a treat and been a lot of fun catching up. And,
yeah, it absolutely has.
And we'll keep in touch, and we'll maybe sometime I'll be popping in, and who just snuck in the room was Tate Hieronymus.
Tate,
how you doing, brother? And of course, he always puts in no relation to Bob.
We know, buddy.
We know.
That's what I was going to ask.
But David, again, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and
absolutely,
folks. In case you're wondering, the link to David's book has been pinned on the top of the chat. You can also find it in the description below the video if you're watching late. For those on, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Stitcher, be sure to check out the video if you have time. Swing by. That way you can put names to faces and voices to faces, and see our antics and videos that we throw out here as well. So, Chris, off to you, sir.
Yeah, again, I want to thank David for coming on. Dave, we appreciate having you on. It's an honor, and I enjoyed our chat. I always like having a researcher on that I can relate to, and I appreciated having you. And I want to thank all of our chat room listeners and everybody on the podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you. And especially if you're listening on the podcast, stop by Squatch-D TV. Squatchdetective.tv, or check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the like button. If it's the first time listening, do us a solid. We appreciate you, and thank you.
And like I said, if you're in the chat and you haven't done it yet, smash that like button. We appreciate it. Helps with the algorithm. Visit the Squatch-D swag. Squatch-D. Visit the swag store. That's a good way of supporting the channel. It gives us a few ducats, and it gives you a neat shirt, including the Bigfoot Lab Track shirts, which unfortunately has Professor McGillicuddy on it. It's kind of demanded. But anyway, so folks, next week, 9 p.m. Eastern on what's going to be the date next week? I don't even know. I'm not even going to try it. But next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have on Bruce Hallenbeck talking about the Kinderhook creature. In case people were wondering what the Kinderhook creature was, Kinderhook is just south of Albany, across the Hudson River. So it's across the river in south of Albany, south of Rensselaer County, New York, and had a huge flap of Bigfoot sightings in the 80s, and it still goes on to this day in certain areas surrounding southern Rensselaer County, northern Columbia County, which is the county where Kinderhook is. So it's going to be a real good conversation. Bruce used to be a radio DJ as well, and for a local news network. So it's going to be a good time with him, and he's a wealth of knowledge and been at it a long time. So, and then of course the 12th, which I suppose that means the 5th. The 5th will be Bruce Hallenbeck. The 12th we'll have on. We won't have a show because it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I like to partake in the game and the food and the libations that surround that. And the week after that, we're going to have on Jay Pachochin and Maddie Pachochin talking about their follow-up visit to the Kettle Moraine. And we're going to have some videos there. I've already seen some of them, and it's going to be a very interesting show as well. No experiences, but we're going to get some answers to some of the stuff we discussed a couple of weeks back. So anyway, on behalf of me and everybody else, I want to have everybody have a great, healthy week. We want to wish everybody blessings, and of all, keep healthy, and God bless, and keep on squatching. We'll catch you here all next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless, and keep on squatching.